All right, today we have on Sherri Murrell. She is currently the women's basketball coach at Portland State University. This interview is about the progression from a player to a coach and how it's impacted her life, her career, and some of the decisions she's made. Sherri, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much, David.
Now, you're in your off season, right?
Yeah, it's technically off season, but NCAA's changed some rules to where we actually get to work with the student athletes during the summer. So it's off season as far as games, but we're still working the athletes out.
Now, how are you one of those always on type of competitors where it's basically impossible for you to not be preparing for that first opponent, that next opponent?
Well, I wouldn't say I'm always on. I definitely am driven to, trying to make sure that we're doing everything in our possible way to, prepare our student athletes. And so we're trying to, I always feel like I want to make sure I'm 2 steps ahead of my opponent. So we're always trying to do, everything we can, both athletically, and mentally for our student athletes. But I'm not, I wouldn't call myself an extremist, that's for sure.
Okay. Now, you played, right? You're not just one of those coaches who, knows X's and O's from a coaching standpoint. You've actually played.
Yeah, I've played sports all my life and just started at a really young age. Was real fortunate to have a brother and sister that were both older than me that were really into sports. And then, my family, really, I was born and raised in a small town for about 15 years and then moved up to Portland, Oregon. But, was always around sports. And, my parents were great. They fostered any desire that we had, whether it be music or sports or whatever. And I just took to sports. And so, I was fortunate enough to put the time in and work really hard to get a scholarship. And I ended up graduating at Pepperdine University and played point guard there. And was going to go overseas and play pro ball. At the time, that was the only option for female athletes in basketball. But a week before I was supposed to leave for Germany, I blew my knee out. It was the only injury I had in my career. But right after that, I just got right into coaching.
Wow. So what is it like? What is it like to get injured? I mean, obviously, it was the first injury that you've had, and it was, I guess, at the end of your career. So some might call that a blessing. But how? What was your mindset? Was it what do I do now, or was it okay, what's the next closest thing to ball that I can do?
Right. I think, having an injury it's pretty tough, and it helped me understand what my own athletes go through. And we had actually a first year in my career where we had 2 ACL injuries for our top 2 players, so it kind of helped me understand what they went through. But it was at the end of my college career, but I was really looking forward to going overseas and playing pro, and I really wanted to see the challenge that brought into my life. And so it was pretty devastating, to be honest with you. I mean, not devastating to the point where I just, all I did was sit and cry, but it was really kind of a point in time in my life where I had to figure out, okay, what do I do next? I've always had a healthy body, and now I don't. So it didn't derail me. It really just put me on a different path. I was going down a different road after that. And basically, I played ball, but in between playing ball, I would help out with small, like a 5th grade basketball team. And I just knew that once I was coaching, once I did that, I was only about 20 years old. I just knew it was my calling. It was what I wanted to do. And so I was fortunate to have my coach that coached me at Portland State. His name was Ron Fortner, and he said, hey, if you want to get into coaching, I'll let you, help out with our basketball team as a graduate assistant, and you can finish up your I think you have 1 more class to graduate. And so I got in it, and 22 years later, here I am still coaching, and I just absolutely love it.
Cool. Share some of your progression from being a GA to obviously becoming a head coach. What was that?
Mm-hmm.
Was it, dare I say, like a fast track for you, or was it more along the lines of, you just grew into it and you
Mm-hmm.
bit off more pieces and you got exposed to more?
Yeah, it was, it wasn't like I sat down and said, hey, I want to be a head coach by this age. I didn't do anything like that, but just my personality, I'm very, very passionate and very driven. And so I just got into coaching and I just loved it. And I wanted to do everything I could possibly do to be successful for whoever I was coaching for, and then just, to lay the groundwork for my career. And I just went out and I met as many people as I could. I networked as much as I could, learned as much as I could. I went to coaching academies. Tara Vanderveer had one at Stanford. I just really tried to learn as much as I could. And I think that, it's about who you know in this business that really helps you land some jobs. And so I became a head coach at George Fox University after being an assistant at Division I. George Fox at the time was an NAIA school, and I was 25 years old. Had no clue what I was doing as a head coach, but it was absolutely awesome because it was small enough school, small enough division to where I could, kind of learn and not be in this fishbowl of at the Division I level, and so I spent 4 years at George Fox, and it was just a great learning experience for me. And I think my George Fox experience really laid the groundwork for being a head coach at this level. And then I knew that I wanted to get back into Division I, so I jumped at an assistant job at Portland State, of all places, and was here for 2 years, and then had my D1 coaching job at University of Pacific offered to me, which I actually turned it down. Because I felt like I didn't want to leave Portland, and I felt like I wasn't ready yet, and the AD just was persistent, and I'm so thankful he was, because I took that job, and that was really the best decision for me in my whole progression, and had some wonderful years there. But that's I think I was so driven and so passionate about the game and learning that it opened doors for me. And then I also just meeting people and getting the chance. My job at University Pacific actually was someone else knew me that the AD called and reached out, and she was a very well-respected coach in the South, and he just called her up and said, who's the most up-and-coming young coach on the West Coast that should be a head coach that's an assistant, and she named me. And so it was all there. From that point on, I've been a Division I head coach now.
Now, before I move on to my next question, this is something I just thought of, as you were speaking, answering that last question. I see a lot of, whether it's men or women, during college or as they're trying to, play pro ball or wherever, once they start to realize that, their pro aspirations, and this is irregardless of sport, mind you, once they start to realize that those opportunities are probably not going to materialize, the first thing that comes to their mind is like, okay, well, let me get my master's, and okay, where can I be a GA? You've been in those shoes. You've been an assistant coach. You've been a head coach at a smaller NAIA school and a D1 school. What would you look for as far as in a GA? What would you say in a person that says, to you, like, hey, they're special, or, I need to give them more of a workload, or, hey, I need to bring them into the office while we're talking about this so they can learn, because it's going to help them become a better coach down the line? Yeah.
Well, first of all, I call it the it factor, which is not a new term, but I look for it factors more than resume factors. You could have someone that has just a stellar resume, but they just don't have the it factor. And the it factor to me is someone that has similar qualities I had at that age, really passionate, driven. They are not willing to work hard right out the gate. And something that really strikes home for me is that I was driven because I love the game of basketball, but I also just wanted to be a transformational coach. I wanted to be to where I transformed lives and helped young women grow and to grow, as on the court as well as off the court. And so, it's something that I don't know if I can bottle it up and tell you exactly, but it's just, you see this it factor in people, and I think sometimes we just look for, hey, this person went to this school, this named school, and that was a big deal. But you got to have a personality. It's a sales job. You got to recruit, and you just got to be able to, be confident. And so those are a lot of things that I look for, and aggressiveness.
Okay. Yeah, I think that's one of the things. I think all younger people, or let's just say, recently former athletes, they don't understand. They think that they bank on being an athlete as far as wherever they went to school, or wherever they went to high school, whatever accolades they received as being, what's going to open them doors. And it can, and it does. But at the end of the day, if they don't have that if factor, like you're saying, and it doesn't necessarily have to be like, oh my gosh, you are the next John Wooden, but there has to be a buzz about them that is attractive, if you will, that is magnetic.
And I think you're so right, David. And I think the other thing too, and Gina Ariema actually said this one time, and I really liked it. I think some young athletes come in also thinking, man, I'm just going to get my first job and I made it. They don't really realize that they have to work extremely hard, like we all have, to sustain and be in this profession. So, he said one time, he says some coaches, they expect the charter, the plane charter with their first job, and you just have to really work hard to be in this business for as long as you can, because it's a pretty tough business if you don't work hard, if you don't every day try to be a step ahead of your opponents and your competition, then man, you're just going to get left behind. And I just think that some young athletes that got into coaching that really thought, oh man, I made it, I don't have to work so hard, I'm going to get this big time job or a big name school, and then they didn't work hard after that, and that's just something that they won't last long.
Well, and now transition a little bit. You talked about Gino Ariema. And obviously you're a D1 women's basketball coach. What is that like? How much of a pressure cooker you're talking about? It's not just X's and O's. It's a sales job. It's recruiting. It's endorsements. It's the whole bowl of wax. Yeah, and it's a lot of pressure nowadays. The airport runway is getting shorter and shorter with our job, and what I mean by that is, coaches come in as head coaches, and they used to be like, oh yeah, we'll give them lots of time to help build a program up. Man, the lifespan these days are like 3 years. If you don't get it done in 3 years, you're out. So there's a lot of pressure for that, which brings its own set of I think difficulties. But yeah, you've got pressure from all the way from your administration to the boosters, the fans, the players. Everybody's looking at you to try to win and make sure that the program is successful. But I just that's pressure, and I think I always put pressure on myself more than anybody else. But I just always have to remind myself that if I do these three things, I think the winning will come. And that's just really have a work ethic with me and my team and my staff, really create teamwork, and then improve every year. And I think if you have those three things, I think really the administration and people around you, if they see those three things, they're going to latch onto it. And, at Portland State, we're not in most women's basketball programs across the country. And actually it's not too many teams run in the black, but we're not one of those return on investment sports. So we've got to make sure that we're doing everything we can, not just, winning and improving, but showcasing on the floor great teamwork and great improvement and work ethic, and then getting into the community is a big one too. Now you talked about, or speaking of like D1 and just, everything involved, one of the things I always want to ask coaches, not because I'm trying to back them into a corner or anything like that. How and you played, so you played in a different era, if you will. So you have a frame of reference.
Well, don't age me,
no,
David.
No, we're not doing that. We're just saying you didn't play last year. That's what we're saying. How do you recruit nowadays? I mean, it's like every time you turn on anything NCAA related, it's like either a new rule or there's a new something or there's always legislation and you played, and actually when I played in college, early 2000s, it wasn't as just wow, that's a load of litigation and paperwork as it is now, but as from a coaching perspective, I mean, I don't want to know your itinerary, but what is your mindset going to recruiting? Is it more so like we're talking about for a GA, or it's an it factor, and obviously they need to have the grades and what have you? What's your perspective going into recruiting and just dealing with the compliance of it all?
Mm-hmm. Well, I've seen it evolve. It's been from wasn't hardly a lot of rules and regulation to where now they went over the top, to where the book is, encyclopedia, it seems like now, thick, to where now they're going, okay, this is getting a little bit out of control because these rules and regulations, we can't regulate them. They have so many darn rules, and they don't have enough compliance people to regulate them. So they're kind of, it's kind of interesting how it's evolved. But I've been in coaching long enough to where I know where when I'm recruiting, I kind of know common sense and what the rules are. I guess when you've been doing it 22 years, you know it, and we also have to take tests. But there are times where you're just like, man, they've changed the rules so much that you don't, you have to question yourself. And I always tell my staff, if there is any question where you just kind of like, well, is that the rule now or is it not? Check, and always double check. And so that's what happens a lot is you're always checking with your compliance officer or going back to the rule book. And I think it's pretty common sense, a lot of the stuff, and then many of the other rules that are not common sense. It's just basically being educated. And there's those coaches out there that know the rules, know the common sense, and they're educated, and they're just going to cheat no matter what, and that's unfortunate. But it definitely is. It's gotten a little bit out of control how many rules they do have.
Now, speaking a little bit more along the lines of players and recruitment, how do you? I don't want to say how do you pitch an athlete, but what do you do for your athletes once they come into the fold? You spoke a little bit about it at the beginning of this interview, but what are some of the things that you focus on when they're in the fold?
Are you asking once they get to Portland State after you've recruited them?
Yeah. Once they're true freshmen or redshirt freshmen on the team, what are some of the things? Is it more so you have a long-term plan, hey, you know what, you're not going to be a star next season, but we're gonna develop you, or even though you're green and you're brand new, you're filling a position of need, so you're going to get to play a lot. Is it case by case, or do you have somewhat of a template that you try to fit your athletes in and be flexible with it?
Well, I think it's definitely a case by case. I don't think you can just say, okay, this is the way it's going to be, and they have to fit that mold. I definitely think that you create opportunities, and that is practice, really. Get them out there in the practice field or at court, and say, okay, it's going to be the players that develop the quickest and take the teaching, take what we do and teach, and work hard. And I've had freshmen when I took over the program at Portland State. We had our first year was a 21 season, and it was like 2 freshmen starting. So they may be green, but if they have what it takes to really lead and play hard and develop, they're going to play. But when you come in as a freshman, you're talking about a 17-year-old gal that now, the physical part of the game is the biggest thing that is going to be a shocker for them. So if they're not quite to the strength and the speed that they need to be, it's going to take them a little bit longer time. But like I said, I think we try to develop winners and really try to do what we can to develop winners, and winners usually win, and that's what our coaches are supposed to do. And on my staff, we're just develop them and teach them, try to lead them and mentor them, and then hopefully, at any point in time, they make an impact on our program.
Winners usually win. I think that's one that I might have to say a lot more, because that's pretty straightforward.
About winning or when it happens?
Oh, no, you said winners usually win, and I was like, you know what? That's profound, because that's why we call them winners. That's why they're attributed to winning.
That's why, and it's kind of profound and it's just simple, but I think the hard part about it is just really working on developing winners, mentoring them, really, instead of just wanting the end products right at the end and say, hey, win, win, win. I go back to, I think it's very important that we are transformational coaches, working and transforming them on the court and off the court and taking the time to do it.
Yeah. Now, earlier we talked about, you mentioned how Portland State isn't, the women's basketball team isn't necessarily a return on investment team. Mm-hmm. And obviously in college sports, especially on the D1 level, let's just call it for what it is, a lot of the university athletics focus on the footballs, the basketballs, and maybe baseballs, depending on the school. And you said, you mentioned how you focus on the three things that you feel will help propel the program forward. What is it like just on the level of, because I've always envisioned I've never really wanted to be a coach, but I see coaching as you get to run a very unique business. You get to run a business of playing whatever sport that you play and getting all of your employees, coworkers, if you will, on the same page and, fulfilling an objective. How do you deal with just the management side of being a coach? I mean, we've touched on it a couple times, but what about that side? Because obviously you're not the football team or you're not the men's basketball team, but you are the women's basketball team, and you do have a product or a game that can be very beautiful to watch. So share some of that with us.
Well, I love that part to it, the management, and just really empowering people to all work together, and to have them in result. And I kind of run my program like a business model situation where I have a vision, and I've made it very clear and let my staff, my AD, my players, this is our vision. This is what we want here, at Portland State. And then from that vision, really just, doing all we can to empower them to work together, to succeed and really help that vision become a reality. I like that. I think that drives me a lot. It's it's such a chemistry project from every single year. I mean, we're talking people from different religious backgrounds to socioeconomical backgrounds, races. You're just bringing in, 15 players, and it's a chemistry project of trying to get everybody to have a common goal and have that goal, that vision, everybody work together for it. And, you've got egos, you've got all things that factor into it, and it's just like in the business world. But, I'd really try to focus on, team first, trying to put aside my own, maybe sometimes my own wishes are not really the wishes and the vision of the team, and I've got to make sure that we're all driven for that one vision and put aside any of my my problems or my issues. And the same thing with the young ladies, is that we're just working together. So I focused on that, and then just I think we call it the Viking excellence, and really try to focus on three areas where we will always try to make everybody, or try to empower everybody to get better, and that's in educationally, relationally, and athletically, and focus on those three areas.
That's good. Now, let's get into the lighter side of the interview. What are some of your favorite moments of, like, whether it was back when you first started coaching or just more recently, where you're just like, wow, did that just happen? Am I really a part of what's going on right now?
Yeah, I have so many favorite moments, but I think one that was just touching for me, very emotional, was when I left Washington State. I took over a program at Washington State that has never won, and except for 1 year since it's been started, the program. And so it was just a tough situation to be in. So many of my colleagues said, Sherri, don't take that job. It's just a job. It's going to be a profession killer. It just is never going to turn. And I did. I took it. And it was 5 rough years of losing. And I still had 3 years left of my contract. I was not pushed out at all. I just went to the athletic director and I said, listen, it's just not working for me here. This program needs to go a different direction. The losing was really getting to me, and I just felt like I was not doing my best as well. And so anyway, it's a short story on that. I left Washington State, and it's the first time I've never had a job hunter or something right there. And so I quit with a lot of money on the table and just walked away and bought a house here in Portland. There was really no jobs, coaching jobs that were open at the time that was interesting to me. But I said, I'm going to go back home to Portland, I'm going to buy a house, and then try and figure it out, and I'm sure I'll land on my feet. But I needed to take a break too. Within 2 months, Portland State, believe it or not, that job just, opened, and it was like not unexpectedly. And so they came after me. I got the job. So here I am from a situation where I was just miserable, losing at Washington State, and I had 2 months off, and it refreshed me. It made me think, hey, is this really what I want to do? And I did. I didn't want to not coach, but I also wanted to be happy, and professionally and personally. And so anyway, I came to Portland State, and our time here was amazing. In the beginning, we were winning. First year, 21 season, second year, NIT, and then I think it was my third year, that we went to the NCAA tournament, and we had actually finished 5th, and I think it was maybe third year I was here. We finished 5th in the conference, which was totally underachieving. We were supposed to be number 1 in the conference, and we went to the tournament, the Big Sky tournament, and you have to win. If you're 5th seed or 6th seed, you basically are going to have to play 3 games back to back to go to the NCAA tournament and win the tournament. So it was really kind of a fresh start for our team, and so we go to the tournament, and we won our first game, and I was like, okay, that's good, at least we're not ending on a losing note. And second game we win, and I'm like, holy crap, we're in the championship game. And when we won, it was just overwhelmingly amazing emotionally for me, just going, wow, this just happened. We are going to the NCAA tournament. And I went from, in my professional career to the lowest of lows to 3 years later to the highest of highs. And it just was so amazing and so refreshing to know that I landed on my feet. I was kind of flat on my face at Washington State, got back up, and then here we were in the tournament. And that probably, to me, was one of my most aha moments. That was a long story. Sorry.
No. Some of the best stories are the long stories. Some would say all the best stories are long stories, but that's another discussion. So I don't want to say you've come full circle, because I don't know you, and I don't know your story in and out, but you have a lot of lessons that you've learned. besides some of the ones that you've already shared in this interview, what's the one thing that you would share with that that senior or that junior who may try to play pro or may not, but is good at coaching or wants to pursue coaching? What are some of the lessons that you've learned along the way that you keep seeing coming back to fruition year in, year out?
Well, I just named one of them, and that's if you really are passionate about something, just stay with it even when you fall. And it can be very rewarding if you do. The second, within that, learn the lesson. Failing is not a bad thing, but not learning from the fail is a bad thing. And I think learning from things that I did wrong at Washington State helped propel me to be successful. I think the second thing that's real important to me personally, and everybody's experiences are different, but it's just being true to yourself. Just professionally, you're so involved in this job. It is nonstop. You can be on the phone and on your computer at home. You've got to have personal happiness and balance. And for me, just moving back to Portland, my family, I now have 4-year-old twins. Just really being personally happy and true to myself, where I don't think I was doing that beforehand. I really felt like I was just professionally driven. I've always loved life and having fun, but I just wasn't doing the things that I think were real crucial to my life to really be able to walk on the court and be the best coach I can, because I wasn't completely happy personally. And so I think that's probably the biggest lesson I could give to anybody, is just making sure that you have that balance and be personally happy and true to yourself.
So that's great advice. Now, before we talk about this upcoming season and some of your goals, where are some of the places that we can find you online for the sports pro, the basketball program online?
For Portland State, you're talking about?
Yeah. Yes.
Yeah. GoBikes.com, VIKS. GoBikes.com is where our team is. You can find us on Facebook, Twitter. PSU Coach Murrell is my Twitter account. And then Facebook is Portland State Women's Basketball.
Okay. Now, what are some of your
next?
What's
Maybe
that?
There might be a startup company that we have to jump on for tomorrow, but it seems like as soon as I want to manage one thing, it's like something new comes on and we have to do it. Yeah, that's crazy.
Yeah. Oh yeah. It's definitely an arms race. What are you looking forward to this upcoming season? What are some of your thoughts on that? I know it's very, very early, but still.
Well, I think the biggest thing for us is we really have had success here, and last year the injuries just knocked us down to our bottoms, and so we were a very young team, and I'm really looking forward to seeing the improvement of the team that comes back, and then the injured players are going to be healthy. So I'm really looking forward to seeing how our team comes together from all that, from I think some life lessons that we all learned, injuries and just youth, a lot of young players learning. So yeah, that's what I'm looking forward to the most, and seeing how everybody gels together.
All right. Well, Sherri, I just want to thank you again for doing this interview. This was pretty cool.
Yeah, thank you, David. I really appreciate the time, and I really enjoyed talking about our program, and I just think there's a lot of coaches out there in the making that probably have a lot of talent, and I really appreciate the questions about that, because I think this world can never have enough good teachers and coaches out there to help. Just even as I'm raising my kids, I look like so many people can impact the youth of America today, and so anything to help a young person get into the coaching, I love talking about that. Yeah.
I mean, to be honest, you started talking about it, I was like, this is actually we need to go a little bit further down this path, because this is a question I don't feel really gets asked ever, until they're 5-10 years in maybe. So
yeah. Well, I appreciate the time, David. Thank you.
All right. Well, thank you all for being a part of it.
All right. Thank you.